So, Governor, can you just bring us up to date on what's going on in Chicago with the National Guard and ICE right now at this moment?
Sure. Well, I think I'm making news if I tell you this, but we have seen, in addition to the Texas National Guard, which have not been deployed, but they are on the ground, we now have seen that there are 14 so far California National Guard on the ground. And then, of course, they're federalizing our Illinois National Guard. So none of them have been deployed. Again, we don't get direct information from the feds, but we do get reports from folks. That's how we know anything really, is that sometimes it's people who work for me, sometimes it's other law enforcement around the state, or just bystanders. So we know that they're on the ground but not deployed. We also know, even as we speak right now, there are a hearing going on in federal court that we believe that they're actually on a break that will restart at about 4 o'clock Central. So we know that there will be a decision, we think, today on the temporary restraining order about whether or not they can bring outside National Guard to Illinois and whether they can federalize the Illinois National Guard to use on the ground in the state of Illinois.
Well, I want to get your response to something Stephen Miller said on Fox News about the raid on Chicago's South Side. He called it one of the most successful law enforcement operations that we've ever seen in this country. He said it targeted an apartment complex full of Tren de Aragua terrorists, and that this operation saved many lives. Is any of that true? What's your response?
Well, I mean, if this was Pinochet's Chile, if this was Argentina under authoritarian rule, maybe you'd call it successful, meaning that they went after a few people in a building by absolutely terrorizing everybody in the building. There are about 130 people living there, a few of them being targeted, and everybody else, U.S. citizens, people with documentation who may not be U.S. citizens, and even undocumented people who are not Tren de Aragua, who were held for hours and zip-tied. This is middle of the night, troops dropping, not really troops, they were agents dropping from Black Hawk military helicopters onto the building, ransacking the place, breaking down doors and windows and so on. And they arrested a few gang members. And by the way, I'm for let's go get the bad guys. Let's get the bad guys. That's why we have police. That's why we have FBI and DEA. Let's get gang members who are selling drugs or killing people. But that's not how you do it. That's not how we do it in the United States. You don't round up the usual suspects, all the brown people who live in a building, and then ask everybody for their proof of citizenship before you'll let them go while you're arresting the people you actually were aiming at.
So he said the building was full of Tren de Aragua terrorists. False?
Absolutely false. Although I must say, whenever the ICE and CBP agents say something, they put out a release, or now you've got Stephen Miller talking about it, they are lying. I mean, there are several times now where it's just obvious they're lying. You know the story of the man Silveria who was shot and killed on a street in Chicago. They claimed that he had dragged an officer and that the officer was seriously injured. Look, we don't know all the details. They don't wear body cams and share any of the information with us. They just sort of put a release out later about what happened. But now the news media has reported, the Sun-Times, that actually that's not what happened, that the officer stepped in front of the guy's vehicle, that the officer was, in fact, hit at the corner of the vehicle, but he was not seriously injured, as they first said. And yet these officers opened fire and killed the guy who was driving it. And this is a guy who was dropping off his kids at daycare. That plus, the recent shooting. So this is 2 shootings. We have 1 dead person, somebody else who went to the hospital. That it turns out, that they were saying that the ICE was saying that there were 10 vehicles that surrounded the ICE agents. But apparently, according to her attorney, there is body cam footage that shows something different, and that, in fact, this one ICE agent rammed her and got out of his vehicle, was yelling things, including the B word, at her, and that she ended up being shot at because she has a gun in her car. So I'm just saying that you can't believe anything that they say. We now have to investigate all of it. I've called on DCFS, for example, our Department of Children and Family Services, to investigate what happened to the children at that South Shore building that they attacked.